Each year as we come to Veterans Day, for me there is a conflicted past in this. I was a child of the late 60s, and if many of you might remember those days, I very foolishly listened to the news media, listened to those who felt that they were of influence in our society, and I kind of shared the disdain that they had for veterans. The soldiers that returned from Vietnam were greeted very harshly and poorly and with great rudeness because the media, and I will say that, had taught us that they were not good, that they had done something wrong. And I embraced that because I was foolish. And so in my stupidity, I hung on to that for some time. Then I went, did my seminary training, got myself eventually ordained, and then in I don't remember the years, I'm so old, but I think it was like 1990 or something, when the Kuwait War occurred there, I had young men from my youth group who were sent to Kuwait. And suddenly, for the first time, I had skin in the game. I had someone I cared about that was at risk. And I began to pay attention to how this all works, because I really liked those guys. They were gentle kids in their own way. They were understanding what the risk was that they had embraced. And thankfully, none of them came home injured in any way. Perhaps psychologically, maybe because of some of the things they had seen, but not physically harmed anyway. As time went on, I continued to grow in my understanding of what kinds of risks were at place for those who are a part of our armed services. I remember another deep moment was in Hyannis when one of the sons of the parish religious education director, he was sent to Iraq. And then suddenly it struck this very kind young man, beloved by his family, by the community at St. Francis Xavier, who knew him. He'd been on the altar, he'd done this and that, was now driving along the roads in Iraq. And when we saw the video that was showed in his mind as he drove down the road, we prayed for him every week at Mass. We're not letting go. Drove down the road, and in his mind, he remembers it. He says, I don't know why. I want to drive down the other side of that road. So he went to the left side of the road instead of the right side. And on the right side, what happened just as he got even with it? An IED went off and tipped his vehicle over 3 or 4 times. Had he been closer, he would have been killed. There was no question he would have been killed. And I say to myself, how do I have the right to ask him to stand between me and that danger? What gives me that right? And I don't have that right. None of us do. But what we do have is people who are willing to accept that risk for the good of those they love, to take chances with their lives, to place their lives at great jeopardy to protect those they love. And so the gospel today speaks of it beautifully. If I were to ask any of those kids, do you realize they're talking about you here? When God is going to be so pleased at the judgment to say, come on in. You've taken care of me so well. You've loved me. You've fed me. You've clothed me. You've stood as the wall between great harm and me. Come on in. They'll say, when did we do this? We were just doing our jobs. And he says, you were doing your job because you understood what you were asked to do, and you said yes. This morning, I think it is that we need to pause and offer great praise and thanks to God for the people who are so courageous, so willing to sacrifice, and maybe be a little bit humble before that and say, would we be able to do that? Maybe it's something that comes with youth, and you lose it when you get older because you see what tremendous risk and danger it is. But it's something to be honored. It's something to be respected, and something to thank God for.